Not all roads are created equal. It sounds like a simple statement, right? But it's actually profoundly true, especially when you're talking about a country the size of Brazil. Today, we're going to uncover a hidden map, a completely new way of looking at the country's lifelines that shows us where they're strong and, maybe more importantly, where they are dangerously fragile. So let's pull back the curtain on the map you've never seen before.
I mean, just look at this place. Brazil is absolutely massive. We're talking the fifth largest country on the planet. And to connect everything, all its sprawling cities and different regions, it relies almost completely on its roads. And we're not just talking about strips of asphalt here. You really have to think of them as the nation's circulatory system, the arteries and veins that keep the economy and its people moving.
And if you need proof of just how deep that reliance goes, well, look at this. This table is just staggering. Over 95% of all passenger travel in the entire country happens on roads. 95%. Just think about that. It means that when a single critical road has a problem, the entire country can feel it. So we all have this picture in our heads of what the map of Brazil looks like, right? We see it on our phones, on the news. But what if I told you that familiar shape, those lines we all recognize, are actually hiding the real story? The story of how the country is truly connected, where the hidden risks are, and where its deepest vulnerabilities lie. Okay, so this is where things get really, really cool. To find that hidden story, researchers had to completely change how they looked at things. They stopped seeing roads as just, physical pavement and started seeing them as a huge, interconnected digital network. It's a journey from pavement to pixels. They used this powerful tool called network science. Now, it sounds complicated, but the basic idea is super simple. It's the same way scientists study social media friendships, or even the wiring in our brains. You just break a big, messy system down into two things: nodes, which are just points, and edges, which are the lines connecting those points. So an intersection becomes a node, and the piece of road between two intersections, that's an edge. Simple as that. And this slide shows you exactly how they did it. It's really like a giant digital game of connect the dots. Researchers took every single road segment and identified its start and end points. Then they digitally stitched them all together by matching up those endpoints, turning thousands of individual pieces of pavement into one single massive connected web. And here it is. This is the hidden map we've been building up to. Now, it might not look like the Brazil you see on a postcard, but this is the functional reality. This is how the country's federal road system actually works. It's a web of over 5,000 nodes and all the connections that form the true backbone of the nation. So, okay, now we have this amazing new map. But what do we do with it? Well, this is where the real genius comes in. The researchers didn't just look at it in one way. They looked at it through 5 different lenses, using different kinds of data to give real meaning and weight to every single connection. And these are the 5 lenses. First, you've got the obvious one: distance, just how long a road is in kilometers. Then it gets interesting: traffic flow, which is how many vehicles are actually on that road. Incidents, the total number of accidents. Then there's risk, and this one is super important. It's not just the number of accidents, but the accidents per kilometer. And finally, throughput, which is basically a measure of congestion. And this is the absolute key takeaway right here. The lens you choose completely changes the picture. A road that looks short and sweet on a regular map might actually be incredibly long and difficult when you look at it through the lens of constant traffic jams or a high risk of accidents. The data redefines the entire journey. Okay, let me show you a perfect example of this that is just wild. Here we have Brazil's biggest region, the north, and its smallest, the south. On a normal map, the longest trip is obviously on the north. But when you measure the longest path by the total traffic you have to drive through, the whole thing flips on its head. The geographically tiny south suddenly becomes almost twice as long as the massive north. How is that even possible? Well, this quote from the study really hits the nail on the head. It tells us the data is revealing these huge, concentrated bottlenecks and serious safety problems in the South that are completely invisible on a standard map. This network analysis uncovers problems that you would otherwise never, ever see. All right, this brings us to the most critical part of this whole analysis. Now that we can see this hidden network, we can start to ask the most important question of all. Where is it most likely to break? Where is Brazil's Achilles heel? So let me ask you this. If you wanted to cause the most disruption to a network,
where would you strike? You'd go for the big, busy central hubs, right? The most connected intersections in the biggest cities? Well, the answer is going to surprise you.
Get this. This slide just turns all of that conventional wisdom completely upside down. In most networks, like on social media, taking out the biggest accounts is devastating. But for Brazil's roads, it's the opposite. Taking out the most central hubs actually breaks the network slower than just removing nodes at random. Random failures are more damaging than a targeted attack. But why?
And here's the key insight. It all comes down to one word: geography. Road networks are stuck in the real world. Those big central nodes are usually in dense cities where there are tons of other ways to get around. They have built-in redundancy. The real weak spot? It's out on the edges of the map. That one lonely road that connects a whole remote region to the rest of the country. It might not have much traffic, but if it's the only way in or out, its failure is a catastrophe. The lonely road is often the most critical one.
And this just brilliantly shows how this plays out across Brazil's different regions. The Northeast is brittle. If you take out just a few key long-haul roads, the whole region gets cut off. The Southeast is bottlenecked, with similar weak points. But then you have the Midwest, which is surprisingly resilient. Its network is more like a web, so it can handle damage and degrade gracefully. And finally, the huge North is simply isolated. There are so few roads up there that any single break has a massive local impact. So, what's the point of all this? This isn't just some cool academic exercise. This kind of analysis provides a real, concrete roadmap for action. It's about moving from just understanding the network to actually building a smarter, more resilient one for the future. At the end of the day, the value of this hidden map is that it lets planners be incredibly strategic. It's not just about paving more kilometers of road anymore. It's about understanding the function of each road in the bigger system and putting money and resources where it will matter most for the whole country's resilience. And this is what that action looks like in the real world. You can target money to strengthen those brittle connections in the Northeast. You can plan much better disaster responses because you know exactly which routes are the most critical. You can manage traffic to ease up on those bottlenecks in the South. And you can improve safety by focusing on the hallways with the highest risk, not just the ones with the most cars. So, we've seen that the roads we drive on every day have this whole invisible layer of meaning, a hidden map of connection, of risk, and of resilience. And that leaves us with one last big thought. What other complex systems in our lives, our supply chains, our power grids, maybe even our own careers, have a hidden map just like this one, waiting to be discovered?